apabila ada audiens yang meminta, nanti akan dikasih dan di-share juga. Topik webinar ini adalah memilih produk irigasi yang tepat di situasi yang menantang, untuk membahas beberapa tantangan yang akan atau pernah dihadapi dari kami dan juga mungkin dari audiens semua di lapangan. Besar harapan kali ini dapat memberikan banyak ilmu dan mungkin bisa memberikan solusi yang sering dihadapi di lapangan. Untuk webinar kita mulai saja. Pada Irigasi Technical Advisor, Mr. Robert, dipersilahkan untuk menyampaikan materi.
Okay, thank you, Risa, for your nice introduction. So the topic of our webinar today is, let me share you the right irrigation products in challenging situations. This material written by the Rainbow is written and prepared in English, so I will talk in English, and maybe I can talk and mix with a little bit in Bahasa. So our conversation today does not mean that we will cover all the challenges that we are encountering in our irrigation projects. But our purpose here is to review only some of the challenging scenarios that we see in our highlights in this, let me admit that, in this webinar. There are 3 poll questions that are prepared in this webinar, and you may answer this in your own opinion by writing it to your answer in the chat button of your Zoom screen. If you don't want to answer, okay, that's not matter. So if you answer, you can choose of the following selection that I will give you. So the first full question here is this: which of the following products do you find the most challenging use on projects? So you have a selection here. You can answer it: A, nozzles; B, rotors; C, pumps; D, drip; E, smart controllers. So you can choose one of these. You can choose 2 if you want.
Mungkin untuk saya bantu di dalam bahasa, mungkin untuk full question ini, mana dari produk input yang menurut Anda sekalian atau audiens paling menantang digunakan dari project? Apa yang paling menantang? A, nozzle; B, rotor; C, pump; D, drip; smart controller. Mungkin bisa dikasih jawabannya kita sebagai masukan. Terima kasih.
Okay, so as we wait for the results of your answer, we are going to discuss some of the common challenges, especially when you are doing your irrigation design. So let's go to scenario number 1. Scenario number 1 here is regarding about spray heads, rotors, and nozzles. So the challenge here, maybe you are concerned about this challenge. Question here is, when should I use spray heads versus rotors? And with so many nozzle choices, so in here, when we are doing our design or your design in your project, you need to consider the side condition first. This means that you need to know the area of the project. You need to know the landscape plan and the types of plants and the soil that you are going to irrigate. And you should look at the catalog also about the nozzles or the radius of throw of spray heads and rotors. So you look at the catalog of Rainbird, spray heads has an optimal throw range between 5 feet to 20 feet in English. But in metric, it will be the equivalent of 1.5 meter to 6 or 5 meters. How about rotors? Rotors has an optimal throw range between 16 feet to 80 feet. In metric, you will get 5 meter to 24 meter throw of radius or more. So this is the comparison of spray heads and rotor heads according to radius of throw. Let me admit this. So nozzles actually are part of spray heads and rotors. The selection of nozzles will depend on distance that you are going to irrigate and also the soil and site condition. So let me show you some materials of spray heads and rotors or even the nozzles. So let me check if I have the sample. So if you can see this one, this is the spray heads. This is the most commonly used in Indonesia. This is the 1800 series of Rainbird spray heads. Second one is the rotor. So this is the spray heads, smaller. This is the rotor type of sprinkler. This is actually the Rainbird 5000 series rotor sprinklers. And when you buy Rainbird rotors, like for example, 5000 series Rainbird rotors, these nozzles will come with it. So let's say this is a complete nozzle from nozzle 1, I think, until nozzle number 8. So you can select nozzles for this according to your radius of throw. Spray heads, there's no nozzle. You buy spray heads, there's no nozzle that come with this spray head. You can buy different kind of nozzles because different kind of distance. So this is the, for example, this is the 15 MPR nozzles, or you can use the 15 pan nozzles. So this will not come with this spray body if you buy these spray heads. You can also use nozzles like the rotary nozzles for these spray heads. Share this screen again. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. But how about the plants? If the plants are planted in pots, are you going to use spray heads, rotors? Now, scenario 2, we are going to go into scenario. This is regarding about pots. As you can see in the picture on the right side, you see some pots here in the hardscapes, some pots on the around the swimming pool, or there is also one planter box there, same as pots. How do we irrigate? The challenge here is, how do we irrigate pots on the podium or podium plants? How do we irrigate planter box around the swimming pools without clogging or creating annoying runoff. So here, we can use here we call in Rainbird's emitters, drip emitters. Some drip emitters of Rainbird is the Seribug emitters with stake. And we can also use the Seribug bubblers, So of course you cannot use spray heads here because of the runoff, and it is followed the hard surface or hardscape if you are going to use the rotors or spray heads. So I will show you some material again, and bubblers. As you can see, this is a Seribug emitter. Seribug emitter, of course, around the pots, of course, you have to use the 1/4 tubing of the Rainbird, and you can use a stake. And what you do is you still need a 16 mm tubing, and then punch it to the 16 mm tubing, and then this stake. You can put this stake around the trees or shrubs or near the root zone of the trees. So this is the emitter that we can use on pots. We can also use the what we call it Seribug bubbler. This is the Seribug bubbler. And still you have to use the 1/4 tubing, and you need some XB connector. And then still you need to use a 16 mm blank tubing, punch it in the 16 mm blank tubing. And this bubbler you can put around the trees or shrubs on the pots. So these are the materials that you are going to use on pots. Now let's be back to the PowerPoint again. But how are we going to choose the right capacity of the emitters in order not to create runoff while irrigation? So that is also one challenge. So the solution for that is we need to consider the following. We need to consider, number one here is the pot container size. You have to consider also the plant and soil type. This is very important to consider in order that you can select your size of Seribug emitter or your bubbler. So I will show you some, why do we need to consider soil type? Or maybe plant first, because plants has different plant requirement. Even trees or shrubs. Trees, there are many types of trees, so they have different types, or they have different plant requirement. How about soil? Why do we consider soil? In order to select our emitter device or Seribug device, or Seribug emitter device. So we consider soil type because I will show you here on the screen. If you use sandy soil, loam soil, clay soil, this has different percolation, and it has also different wetting pattern when you use drip emitter on the trees. You see, as you see in sandy soil, you see the percolation rate and the width of the pattern of the wetting area is only 2.5 feet. Whereas in loam soil, you see 5 feet. In clay soil, 9 feet. So you can choose what is the type of, or what size of what we call emitter are you going to use on the pots. So if you use clay soil, you might need only maybe 1 or 2 drip emitters in the pot. about in coarse soil, because you see the wetted pattern is very narrow, so might need 2 or more emitters. That's the reason why we need to consider the type of soils that they are going to use in the pots. Okay, so once you have already considered plant and soil type, pot container size, you can select the Ceribug emitter size. Available in Rainbird, emitter size in terms of capacity is, there is a 0.5 GPH, there is a 1 GPH, there is also 2 GPH. And you can buy the stake also if you need. You can buy the 1 1/4 tubing. You can buy also the blank tubing. Include this is a set to combine in order that you can irrigate pot plantation. So if you have already known all this consideration, you can now schedule or you can now calculate the right amount of time to irrigate plants on pots. Now, before we, do you have some comments, Lisa? Okay. So before we go to full question number 2, let's review now the full question number 1. To remember, full question number 1 here is, which of the following products you find the most to use in your projects?
Untuk full question nomor 1 tadi Mr. Robert, ternyata yang paling menantang itu
Bang Oleh, lu ke kantor nggak, Bang?
Penentuan untuk pompa. Ada jawaban dari Ibu Lili yang menjawab untuk pompa, dan Bapak Kifli Adikalo menjawab untuk pompa. Untuk Bapak Michel menjawab untuk smart controller.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers. And let's go now to the next full question. Full question number 2. What can be the easiest resource for you to find information and irrigation products? There is a selection again here. Letter A, manufacturer's catalog, the distributor, the manufacturer representatives, friends, and manufacturer's website. So you can choose which is your answer here. You can choose 1, you can choose 2 if you want. Okay.
Mungkin untuk memperjelas yang full question 2 dalam bahasa, apa yang menjadi sumber termudah informasi untuk mengetahui produk irigasi? Apa dari A, manufaktur katalog, B, distributor, C, atau manufaktur representatif, D, dari teman, atau E, manufaktur website. Terima kasih. Ditunggu untuk komen.
Okay, I will wait for your answers again in the chat bottom. And while we wait, we are going to discuss some of the products of Rainbird that is offered also in online. So let's go to scenario number 3. Scenario number 3 is regarding precipitation rates. Precipitation rates of sprinkler, which is very important in your design. The challenge here is, how do we deal with zones that are either designed or installed with mixed precipitation rates? Well, to answer this question is, let's take the definition of precipitation rate first. So as defined in the screen, precipitation rate is a rate at which a sprinkler system applies water to a given area. So precipitation rates, the unit of precipitation rates of sprinklers is, in English, inch per hour, and metric you can get millimeter per hour. So if you look at the right picture here, you can see that the landscape area is composed of flower beds, turf area, or grass, some shrubs, and trees. And we know that plants have different water requirements. So if you mix spray heads to the rotors in one zone having different precipitation rate, then that would damage your plants, and it will lead to a drainage issue because there would be some overwatering and there are some less watering in some areas. So it would damage your landscape plants. So precipitation rates, sprinklers are very important to consider in your design. But where can you find precipitation rates of sprinkler? You can find that in the catalog, of course, of Rainbird. You can find that in the brochures if you want. So I will show you some of the precipitation rates of, let's say, for example, the one I show you, this is spray heads. Where can you find precipitation rates of spray heads? So in the catalog, Rainbird catalog. If you're buying a Rainbird, they will give you catalog for any Rainbird products or any sprinklers that you are going to buy. Let's say spray heads precipitation rates. We can find it in the catalog this way. So let's say nozzle of 15 series MPR or maybe 15-pan nozzle. As you can see here, precipitation, if we look at the, there are two units here, the English and metric. So let's consider the metric one. If you select the nozzle, 15 full circle spray head and take 2 bar, this is green, and a radius of 4.6, your precipitation rate at the right side of this specification is 40 millimeter per hour. If your sprinkler is spaced in a triangular spacing, but if you space it in rectangular spacing, the precipitation rate is 46 millimeter per hour. So I would suggest if you are designing, you would use triangular spacing because you will get a higher precipitation rates. That means that you can irrigate your area faster than rectangular spacing. So that this is what I mean by precipitation rates. You can use this precipitation rates data, these spray heads, in the calculation of the time period or operating time of each zone of your irrigation system. Let's see about the precipitation rates of rotors. This is precipitation rates of rotors. Now, how about rotors? You see on the left side also, if you take, this is the rotor that I am discussing you a while ago. Let's compare the precipitation rates of rotors and spray heads. 500 series rotor, a bigger sprinkler than spray heads. So if you look at the precipitation rate of rotors, let's take the biggest nozzle of rotor 500 series. Let's take 8 at 2.5 bar. A triangular method spacing, you will get 24 millimeter per hour, while if you space it in triangle, it is 28. So let's just take precipitation rate on triangular method. This is 24 at 2.5 bar. So comparing to spray heads, it is 40 millimeter per hour. So you see spray heads, even though it is small sprinkler, roto is a big sprinkler, but the precipitation rates of spray heads is higher than this roto sprinkler. That means that you will irrigate your area faster if you use the spray heads. But that will depend on your size and area of your landscape, because you cannot also use spray heads in a large scale of landscape, large areas. So this is what I mean by precipitation rates. So this precipitation rates is very important factor in your irrigation design. But how about if the sprinkler or emission device like emitter device, like bubbler, like emitters, does not show precipitation rates? Or there are some also sprinklers that not show in the brochure about precipitation rates. Where precipitation rates is very important in calculating time, but it does not show in the catalog. So what will you do? So what we do is we have to use a formula now. Using this formula, or maybe let's see, I will show you first the Seribug emitter specification here. As you show here, there's no precipitation rate in the catalog. So where can you find precipitation rate of this emitter, Seribug emitter? If there's no precipitation rate, you cannot calculate the time of operation of your bulbs without precipitation rates. So what you do is you need to use a formula to calculate manually the precipitation rate of each emission device. As long as the specification shows you the discharge capacity of emitter or sprinklers, like for example, emitter XB05 0.5 gallon per hour. So as long as you know the nominal flow discharge of each, and we can use this formula that I'm going to give you. So this is the formula. The formula here is, there are three types of formula. If you are spacing your sprinkler or your emitters in square spacing, this is the formula. Triangular spacing, this is the formula. If you have only a single row, spacing of sprinklers, single row, there's no other rows, just a single row, you can use this formula. This precipitation rates is very important to use in calculating your operating time. So operating time, which means runtime, there is also a formula. This is now the formula of operating time. Runtime of each bulb is equal to design application times 60 divided by the precipitation rate. So precipitation rate here, the dividend of this runtime precipitation rate is taken from this formula, precipitation rate. How about the desired application? The desired application is actually the water requirement of a plant. So these are very important. Water requirement, precipitation rates in calculating the amount of time for each zone of your irrigation project. But where can you find plant water requirement? Because you need here in the runtime, desired application, this is the plant requirement. Where can you find plant water requirement? So sometimes you can ask the landscape contractor of the project, because they are the one who knows the plantation in the project. But if the landscape contractor does not want to provide you, then you can search that in the Google. You can search that in the Google. Plants with same species, for example, grass, same species of grass have different plant water requirements when they are planted in different places because of the climate. Let's say, for example, grass or shrubs, if they are planted in, let's say, a part of Jakarta is in Kapuk, and then you plant this same material grass in Bali, of course, the plant water requirement of grass in Bali is different from Jakarta. So this is what I mean of the plant water requirement. Let me show you what is about plant water requirement. This is sample of tables of water requirements for ornamental plants in Abu Dhabi. I took this in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, and this is only just a sample. You know that I use this because last time I used this in Abu Dhabi when I was designing irrigation projects. As you know, in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, there are 3 seasons or 4 seasons. I mean, they have the summer, autumn, spring, winter. So plant type, but in Indonesia, I think you don't have any winter, you don't have any, you have only the summer and maybe a rainy season, but I would choose any season here is I use as rainy season here as in the spring. So for example, type here in the autumn, your rainy season is on grass water requirement when it is mid-summer, rainy season and summer is around 8 millimeter per day or 8 liter per day per square meter. And you have seasonal flower, comparing seasonal flowers, you have 15 millimeter per day. So you see the difference of plant water requirement. So it means that watering time of seasonal flowers and watering time of grass is different. And that means that you cannot use one zone for seasonal flower and grass. So what you do here is you need to separate the bulbs for seasonal grass and seasonal flower and a separate bulb for grass because of the plant water requirements. Now let's go to the scenario number 4. Scenario number 4 is about or regarding rotary nozzles. And rotary nozzles, you have challenge here in rotary nozzles. The challenge here is rotary nozzles seems to be very popular. Why are these so popular and situation should be to use this? Well, my answer to here is, have you already installed rotary nozzles in your project? Now, the truth is in Indonesia, rotary nozzle is not yet, of course, not yet so popular because most of the irrigation contractor here are still using the nozzle, the traditional nozzle, the PR nozzle or the pan nozzles for spray. But in other countries like in United Arab Emirates or in the US, this is very, very popular. And the reason why popular is because of the following reason. Rotary nozzles, these nozzles provide lower application rates, which is very great and useful in slope areas to minimize erosion. And because lower or rotary nozzles per bulb, so you can reduce your bulb. Another reason is the rotary nozzles have longer coverage distance comparing to the traditional spray nozzles. And another reason is you can use these rotary nozzles in tarp areas and also in shrub areas. Now let's go back again to the review question, pull question number 2. If you remember pull question number 2, what tends to be the easiest resource for you to find information on irrigation products?
Terima kasih kepada audien yang setelah ikut di pull question nomor 2. Ternyata jawabannya untuk mendapatkan informasi tentang irigasi yang lebih mudah itu dari jawaban dari Bu Ida Lilia adalah distributor, dan dari Bapak Imam Santoso adalah dari website, manufaktur website.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers. And let's go to the pull question number 3 now. Pull question number 3, question here is, how do you deal with a shortened water window where your current irrigation does not fit? Selection answer here is stock stations. What you mean by stock station here is to arrange your bulbs according to flow. Letter B here, alternative days with multiple programs. Add a second controller. D, combine stations electronically. So you may choose one or two of these answers. So as I wait for your answers again, let's discuss scenarios regarding water window. So scenarios 5 is regarding watering window. So the challenge here is how many of you have struggled to get all your irrigation done in a manageable water window? Yes, there are many owners of plantations now, and they have their own irrigation system, but they don't know how to manage their watering window. But what is watering window anyway? So let's define watering window. Watering window is the irrigation time period to complete an irrigation cycle. So it means the watering time to complete, let's say this is a 5 hectares in the right side of your screen. If this is a 5 hectare, the watering window is, let's say 5 hours. That is your, to complete the irrigation cycle, that is 5 hours is your water window. So if you look at the picture on the screen that I said, let's say this is a 5 hectare irrigation area, and this is still a brown. I think this is intended to be a grass nursery. And let's say the grass watering requirement is 7 millimeter per day, and thus you will need a 350 cubic meter water to irrigate 5 hectares of grass. And let's say the pump that you have selected here is 400 gallon per minute at 6 bar, or you can say 90 cubic meter per hour at 6 bar. So your watering window can be calculated as 350 cubic meter divided by 90 cubic meter per hour is equal to 4 hours. So that is your watering window, 4 hours to irrigate 5 hectares of grass area. So, but let's say the actual irrigation later on is you are spending 8 hours, so double instead of irrigating 4 hours. So there is something wrong in the design or in managing your watering window. So what would you do now in order to reduce your time or watering window into 4 hours, which is supposed to be of your watering window? So there are ways to reduce watering window. Reducing watering window, one way to reduce that is by utilizing the flow manager. With the flow sensor, you can also use multiple controllers or second controllers as discussed as mentioned in the full question number 3, or you can stack zones to maximize out hydraulic capacities. So if you do this method or ways, you can save your time and you can minimize or reduce your water window. And that will lead you to save pump station repairs. And it extends your pump life. But another way to reduce watering window is to program the entire system with a central control system to optimize the flow and to match the pump station. You can use central control system if, let's say, you have already 10 hectares, 20 hectares, or 50 hectares of landscape area, and thus central control system is recommended. Rainbird products have 3 types of central control system, and they are the so-called IQ central control system, the Maxicom control system, and the satellite central control system. But I will not discuss these central control systems today, but this might be discussed on the next webinar. So this is the end of our webinar today, and thank you very much for joining us. And I hope that some of you get some beneficial information about Rainbird products today. So you can ask questions, and we will answer question one by one.
Terima kasih Mr. Robert telah menyampaikan materi di webinar ini. Kita review untuk full question yang ketiga, bagaimana cara menangani water window. Untuk jawab di chat oleh Ibu Ida Lilia, ternyata untuk menangani water window adalah dengan menambah second control dan mengkombinasikan alat elektronik dengan elektronikali. Untuk sesi ini mungkin untuk tanya jawab, apabila ada pertanyaan bisa diajukan melalui chat atau bisa langsung nyalakan speakernya dan bertanya langsung. Pada Oden dipersilahkan. Mungkin sambil menunggu ada pertanyaan, tadi sedikit agak menyimpulkan dari penyampaian Mr. Robert untuk pemilihan spray dan rotor itu kita harus melihat di lapangan range-nya atau jaraknya tergantung pada jarak yang ingin dicapai oleh si sprinkle spray dan rotornya serta kondisi tanah dan lokasinya. Mau pertanyaan, silakan langsung dinyalain aja speakernya. Untuk skenario yang kedua, mungkin harus diperhitungkan supaya air tidak meluap. Oh sorry, ini ada pertanyaan, Robert. Dari Bapak Ridwan Satria, apakah sahabat punya literatur kebutuhan air untuk tanaman yang umum ada di Indonesia seperti durian, alpukat, dan rumput? Grace.
I don't have. You can search that. I don't have that. Saya tidak punya. literature. That's why I told you some of the agriculturists or maybe some of the landscape contractor or some of agriculturists or the municipal data. You can search that in your municipal data, because as of now, what I'm doing is searching in the Google search. If let's say I am in Kalimantan and I have durian there, so I can just search durian requirement, water requirement of durian for Kalimantan only, because different places that I told you, different plant water requirements. So the whole in Indonesia, if plant requirement, especially agriculture, durian, you said alpukat, rumput, that the general data, like for example, grass. I'm using the 8 millimeter per day. Even though if I cannot the immediate response of let's say landscape contractor for the water requirements for each plant, they are using shrubs like that, and then I'm using grass as 8 millimeter per day or 7 millimeter per day as for your calculation for your open. Let's say durian. Let's say durian, if it is in small, let's say age of durian is about only 3 years. So it means that it still needs watering requirements for a small amount, not actually 50 liters per day, but maybe we can use 20 liters per day if it is still a 1 year old seedling durian. So, but I do not have that requirement. I'm getting some data to the landscaper or the supplier of the plant nursery. Can you add that, Itri? Can you add something? Okay.
Next pertanyaan dari Ibu dari Bapak Fitli. Hi Mr. Mamet. I saw from table of rotor 500 the same type of sprinkle has a lower participation rate using high pressure. Does it mean we need to see the watering time longer?
Yeah. That's why I gave you a formula to calculate the operating time. Use the plant water requirement, and your divisor is the precipitation rates. So if the precipitation rate is low, okay, sorry, I'm still muted. So as I told you that if you are using rotor, if you calculate the time of operation here using the formula that I gave you, plant water requirement divided by precipitation rates is equal to the time of operation. So you see that the precipitation rates of, let's say, grass requirement is 7 millimeter per day, and your precipitation rate is 28 millimeter per hour. Whereas spray heads precipitation rates here is 7 millimeter. Say the same plantation grass, 7 millimeter divided by it means 7 millimeter per hour divided plant requirement is 7 millimeter per day divided by 40 millimeter per hour. So you can run maybe only 4 minutes or 5 minutes of this spray, while in rotors, you might spend 10 hours because of the precipitation rates. Yeah, susah because because I am in the Zoom meeting. Okay, so okay, next. Is that clear, or who's this? Who asked that? So the formula, yeah.
Jika belum jelas, nanti Produk akan menulis formulanya, akan arahkan kamera ke papan gitu. Jadi benar-benar akan dimengerti oleh yang lain juga. Coba aja.
Oh yeah. Okay. Can you see everybody? So this is the formula, time of operation, plant water. This is, I already discussed in the PowerPoint, plant water requirement. If you want to calculate the time of operation, running time, plant water requirement divided by the precipitation rate is equal to number of hours.
Just give them an example.
Oh, because there are a lot of conversion. Do we have a?
Because this is a very long process, because you have to convert. So if you have the group chat later on, I will just give you the explanation how to calculate the time of operation. Because if I give you example now, it will take many conversion process. Okay, another question.
Bagaimana cara menyesuaikan penyiraman pada kemiringan tanggul survei dengan lebar 15 sampai 20 meter dengan perkiraan air laut.
Kemiringan begini.
Ya, slope air laut dengan dasar permukaannya pasir tanah.
Yeah, that's the reason why you need to see the. That's why in our PowerPoint explanation a while ago, we need to look at the site condition. So if it is a slope area, you can use the this rotary sprinklers. This is the reason why this is very popular, rotary sprinklers. You can use this. The available of rotary sprinkler is half circle, because if it is, you said mirroring in slope, you can put half circle on top and you could put half circle on down. The precipitation rate of this one is very, very small. So runoff or erosion is minimized because of the flow rate of this is very small. And this is also very adaptable if there is a windy area. if you use spray heads, it's not recommendable if it is slope areas. Okay.
Berikutnya dari Bapak Iwan Santoso, distribute literature milk water for palm oil, please.
Water.
Literature.
Sawit.
Sawit.
We don't have exact because I told you every part of Indonesia there is a water requirement for each part of Indonesia. Kalimantan, in Banjarmasin, different what they call these water requirements. And is already 10 years old or 20 years old different water requirement, but it's still in 1 year old up to 2 years old different water requirements. What we are using in the design sawit in Banjarmasin, they use that's already the plant there is already 20 years old, so we are using 50 liters per day per sawit or more depending on the season. So the table tabulation of water requirement of each plant in Indonesia, maybe we can get that in agriculture, Pemerintah Agriculture.
Next pertanyaan dari Bapak Anto. Untuk lahan terasering dan sudah ada mulsa, sebaiknya itu pakai drip, micro sprinkler, atau dry nozzle.
Oh, slope again. Slope. Yeah, okay. One way, that's I told you, if it's not so windy, you can use this rotary nozzle. But if it is very windy place and the soil is searing erosion, and then you can use the drip line, or maybe you can use a drip line. We have the XFD drip line. If you are using using drip line, do not use the Teribag bubbler. Just use the drip line in order to minimize erosion and minimize overspray, because if you are using the spray, if it is a windy area, and then it is useless to use the spray heads, and it's better to use the drip line irrigation system. Another.
Ada lagi yang mau ditanyakan? Materinya atau kabel, boleh kasih masukan ke kita, bisa langsung di chat atau dinyalain saja mikrofonnya. Di luar ini
masalah
atau ada pertanyaan di luar materi ini, ada trouble di lapangan atau ada apa, bisa diajukan ke Mr. Robert. Kalau tidak ada lagi yang ditanyakan, mungkin kita bisa akhiri webinar kali ini. Terima kasih untuk semuanya yang telah mengikuti webinar. Mungkin webinar dari PT Sahabat akan diadakan rutin setiap bulannya. Nanti kita undang lagi. Mohon untuk menit lagi dan kita bisa belajar bersama lagi. Terima kasih. Oh, untuk nanti yang recording ini formulanya nanti bisa dibaca atau di chat langsung.
Yang menginginkan recording webinar ini, silahkan nanti bisa kirim email ke kami atau chat ke saya di 081-284-799. Kalau udah share link grup Indonesia, silakan yang ingin join, klik link di atas atau saya. Nomor 081-284-79963. Terima kasih atas kehadiran Bapak Ibu semuanya. Semoga webinar kali ini bermanfaat buat kita semua. Semoga webinar akan kami informasikan lagi.
Terima kasih, mungkin saya
close di sini. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.